Good evening and welcome to tonight's council meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'll apologize for the delay. We're trying to add some layers into our technology, so a couple of our members that are out tonight could zoom in if we need them. First thing I'm going to ask for is any agenda changes.
Staff have no changes to present this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Next, I'll open up for public forum. If there's anybody here wishing to address the council that's not on the agenda, now's the time. Seeing no movement from the gallery, I'll close the public forum and move on and ask for the approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda for March 13th, 2023 as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda passes. Next item under unfinished business is I will now open a public hearing for a distressed property at 126 East 3rd Street. And Ethan probably has an update for us on that.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we are March 13th via the resolution 2022-14, which was the last resolution the council passed on the property at the Townsman Motel that asked for the property owner to either present a formal structural engineering review of the property stating why it wasn't a distressed property, or for them to essentially present a plan or to have the building demolished. We did reach out to the property owner again on March 3rd. They did receive resolution 2022-14 with that time frame via certified mail on December 20th of 2022. So we know they did get a copy of that resolution and what it stated. But yeah, I reached out on March 3rd. Have not heard any sort of communication back from the property owner on what their plans are for the building. So I believe because we've gone through that due diligence, I'll let Brad correct me if I'm wrong in this, but I do believe the council via that resolution essentially would be authorized to potentially look at seeking quotes and bids to actually raise the property for the city to engage in that work. And then essentially that can be billed to the owner via their direct billing, and if they would not make the city whole, that can be added to the property taxes, I believe, as a special assessment eventually, if the city gets that far in the process. So I guess, judging from the conversation and that was had back in December, that would probably be our next course of action, is council authorizing staff to go ahead and seek out proposals for the demolition of the property. I would say a realistic timeline would be maybe to have those back to you all by the April 10th meeting, which would be our first meeting in April, just so we have plenty of time to try and get, multiple quotes for that demolition. But you guys are driving this train, so what you want to do with it is up to you. And I don't know if Brad has any more thoughts. This is farther than we've come on in recent memory as far as on in any of these distressed property hearings, so.
Nothing particularly more to add than that. I mean, I think we just go through the process.
Well, what do you think, council?
Is demolishing it, taking the cement out, the concrete, the driveway, like taking it to dirt, or?
No, that would probably just be raising the physical structure itself
Okay,
and then just leaving it concrete.
okay.
And you had mentioned if the property owner didn't make it whole, it could potentially go back on specials on that property. Is that something that, if the property would we, I guess, would start off with, would we own the property at the end of this process? No?
No.
Okay.
It basically would be assessed as a special assessment, so when they went to pay their property taxes, they would see, a special assessment, not dissimilar to what people see who live in like housing developments that have specials, or someone that we've charged for mowing when they haven't paid us within that, 30-day window. Still, property gets with them if they choose not to pay that. I mean, there are consequences for not paying your property taxes after a certain amount of time, but it would go through that process. Nothing would default it to the city, and if it did go to that process and eventually went to like a sheriff's auction, there's no guarantee that the city would recoup anything it spent,
Right.
depending on what that final auction price was, so.
And to take it a step further, one that we've never really done in most of the cities in the area, and certainly not for Halstead. If you go ahead and put that on there, you can treat it as a lien. There is some ability for us to go ahead and foreclose that. That is a process, and and the legal fees that you get into that, we rarely recoup. But, depending on the type of property is, the circumstance that it presents, that's an option as well. But what we do that doesn't cost us necessarily anything more than we were really expended is place that on the property and it runs with it. Where that pays dividends, if you will, is if they sell it and you go to closing, then that gets picked up and they're like, you don't have clear title till all this is paid. So the proceeds from the sale, sometimes we realize it that way, but that's the best hope we have usually.
Okay.
Do we have 3 companies out that are gonna bid already, or is that something we still have to?
I know of 2 that we've dealt with in the past on previous demolitions. I mean, we'll do our best to try and get competitive
Yeah,
bidding. That's why we're asking for a month as opposed to 2 weeks,
right.
so, or suggesting.
All it takes to get this going, council's a motion.
All right. Well, if there's no further discussion, Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to, what's the word I'm looking for? Allow staff to go out and find bids to raise the property at 126 East 3rd Street or the former Townsend Motel, and to bring those back to us no later than April 10th.
Second.
Have the motion and the second to allow staff to go out for bid on raising this property. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carries. Now let's move on to new business. First item under new business is the KMGA prepay project. We had talked about this a little bit, in December, Ethan?
Yeah, December, January.
So Ethan's got some updates he'd like to bring forward, and I believe we have some representation here that's going to speak tonight as well, so you can pretense this and make any necessary introductions, Ethan.
Thank you. We did include, all the paperwork, as far as what we need. Not a lot has changed since we did that initial presentation, to you all, kind of on the benefits or the advantages, to seeking the gas pay, prepay participation in the gas prepay. Sorry, there's a lot of P's. We have Paul Malberg here, who is the general manager for KMEA / KMGA, and so I asked him to come and just speak to you guys a little bit more about the process, because he's been more involved on talking to like the Minnesota Municipal Group that's helping or would be part of this, and kind of what it means and what they're seeing and how common it is in the gas industry. So I'll turn it over to him, I guess, for any questions and comments he has to make on the agreement. And he should be aware as far as what's in your packet. And
All right, well, thanks, Ethan. Yeah, again, I'm Paul Malberg, General Manager of Kansas Municipal Gas Agency. I don't know how many of you were council members a few years ago. We did an effort on a prepay program 3 years ago with the same group that we're dealing with this time. Unfortunately, the financial markets weren't conducive once we were all ready to go, so it never moved forward. So we're back here again. The financial markets, until this past weekend, were pretty good for prepays. We're not quite sure with the problems with the Silicon Valley Bank and the Signature Bank that you've all been hearing about. That's going to be changing the financial markets, our understanding. So anyway, without that, the markets were conducive. So we've been going back to our members. KMGA, we have just over 30 cities that have their gas systems, and going back to those cities to see if they want to participate. This is really just an opportunity to participate, and if the cities want to, they can. If they don't have to. So maybe just a little background. We're gonna, KMGA would sign an agreement with the Minnesota Municipal Gas Agency. It's a similar type organization up in Minnesota for the municipals up there. If we move forward, we'll be less than 10% of the volumes that would go under this prepay program. So we're a pretty small player. They need to get to a certain level of volumes to make a prepay work. We'd be about 10% of what they need. They've been pretty successful in attracting other off-takers. So they believe they're very close to having enough volumes to move forward, and the financial markets are conducive as well. So things are looking a lot better than they were 3 years ago. The way it would work, we would sign an agreement with the Minnesota group, and then any city that would like to participate would sign what we call a back-to-back agreement, which basically passes the benefits and the obligations through to the cities that decide to participate. 30-year agreement, which is, one of the risks, if you will. It's a long-term agreement. The way they make these things work is it's a difference between how a private industry values taxable money versus us going out and borrowing on a tax-exempt basis. And that spread between the interest rate is what creates the value, the discount, if you will. If we move forward, they will establish a discount for the first 5 to 6 years. They call them marketing periods. And that discount will be set and will be guaranteed for 5 to 6 years at the volumes that each city decides to put under this prepay program. 5 to 6 years, they'll go and basically remarket the bonds and a new discount will be set. There will be a minimum guaranteed discount through the 30 years. And if they can't reach that in the next remarketing period, then KMGA and the cities can walk away or move forward with a smaller discount. The minimum discount will be 25 cents. They won't move forward on this if they can get at least 30-cent discount. If they can't get a 30-cent discount, they will wait till the markets can produce a better discount. Recent discounts, there's been 4 prepays done in the United States this year. And they've all ranged in the upper 40s to where one actually got over a 60-cent discount. So again, it all just depends on the market conditions at the time. So 30-year agreement, we will pay MMGA a 4-cent per MMBTU admin fee. So if the discount comes out at 35 cents, our net gain and the city's net gain would be 31 cents. There are some, if you do sign onto this, you're committed for 30 years for those volumes. There are some off-ramps. If you have a permanent loss of load and you can show that, then you can reduce your volumes based on that. If the city were to decide to sell their gas system, well, that would be a full permanent loss and you could walk away from the agreement. You will be committed to 30 years with KMGA for the volumes that you put under this prepay. You're not committed to KMGA to do your full gas management services, which we've been doing for you. You still have the gas participation agreement that you signed that provides a 1-year notice to get out. So you could get out and have somebody else manage your gas, but the volumes under the prepay would still stay with KMGA, and your manager would have to just deal with those volumes as well. So kind of went through that pretty quick. I know Ethan explained it to you back in December, so I'm here to answer any questions.
Council, I'll give you first dibs at him before I speak up. Anybody got anything?
Considering how many people that are in our town, how many other cities this size do you service for that type of agreement? You said 4, maybe 7?
So we've got 30 members, cities that own their gas systems.
Yeah.
Halstead is probably one of our bigger ones, actually.
Okay.
The city of Winfield is our largest city, but Halstead, Heston, Mound Ridge are all about that same level. They're probably next in line as far as our cities. We have a lot of smaller ones.
From a personal standpoint for me on this, I'm speaking as Dennis Travis, a resident. On the preliminary figures, we're looking at a 3% potential savings.
Correct.
And for me, that 3% potential is not worth a 30-year contract. I'm a little apprehensive about putting the city engaging in that kind of a long-term contract. I understand you do have some off-ramps, And even before I would consider it, I would have to look at what those off-ramps are, because any one of our major industries, if they were to close, we could potentially lose 50% load right there.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest concern.
Yeah. Yeah, yes. We've had a number of cities that have decided not to move forward just because of when you look at your total gas bill, if you will, and the percentage that you're obtaining. Yeah, we've had cities that have decided not to move forward because of that 30-year agreement, and the potential savings aren't as.
Yeah, precisely. The risk doesn't equal the reward.
Yep, yep. And we totally understand that if a city decides not to move forward on it. We had 21 cities 3 years ago that signed up of our 30. The gas prices at that time were more like $2.50, $3, and a 30-cent discount was creating a bigger percentage.
Yes.
We hadn't gone through some of the volatility that we've seen. So, we expect that we're gonna have quite a few less cities that decide to go forward, which, we'll have to see. We've asked for cities to give us their indication by March 15th, so we don't know our numbers today. But I will tell you, there's been a number of cities that have decided not to move forward based on just what you said, Mayor, is that it's a 30-year commitment. There are some off-ramps. These are fairly common. This is not something unusual in the marketplace. This is very common for gas systems to enter into prepays. But there's been some things in the last couple of years that, have people looking at it a little bit closer.
Well, go back and tell them if they'll present us an annual contract, we may look at that a little harder.
Yeah, right.
Or even 5 years, but 30, yeah.
Yep. They have to have to get the discount, they gotta have that 30 years.
Yeah.
And, cause we've asked them about doing 15 years and they say they just don't work. You can't get the discount under a 15-year.
I think one of the longest contracts this city was ever in was with our water, and that was a 20-year agreement, right, Ethan? And with the volatility in the gas market, committing to a 30-year agreement for a potential 3% savings that's not worth the risk to me.
Yep. And I want to make it known that we're not recommending this. This was just, here it is. We know of, City of Chanute is one that has been in a prepay. I think they started in like 2005. And theirs was 30 years. It didn't have these remarketing. That's something new that's coming in these prepays. So, if you could fast forward 30 years and know that you're still in the gas system and everything looks the same, the question is, why didn't you get in it? But without knowing what's going to happen the next 30 years, we totally understand that.
Yeah, and I don't want people of Halstead 30 years in the future saying Mayor Travis sold them down the river. So I don't have a vote in this, so council, it's up to you.
I mean, I tend to agree, I think, with what's been said here. In some respects, I think there's some good that could come out of it, but 30 years is an awful long time. I don't know that
It's a
I can
house
do
mortgage.
that. Yeah.
I'm just curious, how are they getting around 10, 11, 16A?
Well, you'll have to tell me what 10, 11, 16A is.
Your utility fund, and we cannot expend in excess of what's in the treasury. And in a 30-year aggregate, we without a doubt would go past that so fast it would, make your head spin. I'm trying to figure out, I'm sure legal counsel has reviewed that, but I've never gotten an adequate answer to that yet, how we get past that.
Yeah, and so we wouldn't have looked at that. We rely on the cities to understand that.
Okay,
Now, I'll tell you that the city of Heston, their attorney looked at that. I don't know kind of the response.
JT would have.
Yeah, JT Klaus. He would have looked at that. I don't know how to respond to that.
Well, there's an exception for certain types of services and commodities, but when you read it, there's at least the potential for argument there.
Yeah.
And it makes me nervous.
Yep.
And I guess I'll have to talk to him to see what he came up with, but.
Yeah, which you may not have to, depending on which way.
Yeah, well, I would anyway, because I'd like to know.
Okay,
But,
yeah.
Brad, can you talk through that a little more?
well, not really. No different than, our ability there was limitations to when we could commit beyond a current fiscal year, because under cash basis law, we don't have the ability to bind future councils or to spend monies that are in another budget. There are exceptions to that when you're on services contracts or certain types of other activity in which we engage, and I won't get into all of that. But there's specific law that deals with cash basis as it relates to utilities, and that's in Chapter 10. And one of them is we cannot spend what we have in the treasury at any given moment in time. And the clerk is statutorily bound not to allow or to do that, and a city manager as well. And given that we would be committing to a certain amount aggregated over a 30-year period, there's no question that we go beyond what's available in that fund, and can't guarantee that it will be replenished sufficiently for us to do that year in and year out for 30 years, but yet we'd be bound for 30 years to do this, other than those off-ramps. And I've yet to get an adequate answer to that. And so I have problems with it with every city I've discussed it with, and I guess I'll talk to JT and see what he came up with, because he does bond work sufficiently that he probably at least looked at it more carefully in that regard. But right now, I would have issues with it.
Any other questions, council? So we can thank this gentleman for his
Yeah,
time.
absolutely.
Thank you.
And we can move on.
Yep, and, you know, thank you for all the, you know, Ethan serves on our executive committee. We appreciate you letting him, you know, lead this organization, our member organization. We always thank Halstead for everything they do for us, so.
We don't let him, we make him.
And he should know the answer to that question.
All right, well, thank you.
I just want to thank Paul and KMGA. This is just one of many things they do. I mean, to try and add, you know, value, and we have seen, and that's where the staff recommendation came of where the gas prices are, you know, anything to try and help stabilize that price. I mean, even though we're only buying a portion of it, you know, definitely has value to our end users, but obviously the concerns noted those are some pretty big concerns, so. Just want to thank Paul and KMGA for continuing to look out and trying to ensure we get the best possible price for our natural gas.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, it looks like we have Mr. Eberly, our golf course superintendent here. That usually means he needs a new piece of equipment.
Close. Council, Mayor, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with regards to equipment purchase at Wedgewood. I'm here to propose the purchase of a Ventrac unit along with contour mower and aerifier. The Ventrac would take place of our current Toro Sidewinder. The main areas this unit would mow are around the greens, tee boxes, and wet areas. It can also be utilized as our everyday rough mower if needed. What makes this Ventrac unit unique are the many ways it can be used, along with the many attachments that can be purchased. The first attachment we are proposing is a contour mower. This means it can do slopes, mound, hills, without scapping or causing any harm to those areas. The other attachment is an aerifier for the tees, approaches, and fairways. This will help reduce compaction and remove thatch, which will help roots grow and water to go down the soil. It will also help reduce the disease in fairways by removing the thatch and overgrowth where the sun cannot reach. The aerifier will have a return on investment within 1 to 1.5 years, depending on how much we aerify. I've taken quotes to aerify our fairways with the price of around $3,000 per year. I would like to aerify fairways once per year while doing tees approaches twice per year. As you've seen with all the quotes, the prices are extremely high for turf equipment. The Ventrac unit gives us the most versatility in maintaining the turf. This piece of equipment, I have no doubt, will last many years. The preventive maintenance plan is no different than any other of our pieces of equipment. The Ventrac dealer is Professional Turf Products, which is our current Toro dealer, based out of Kansas City with their sales rep and technician being based out of Wichita. It will have a 2-year limited warranty for parts and labor. So what I'm asking is to accept the quote from Professional Turf Products for the Ventrac contour mower and aerifier and a price not to exceed $55,000. Have any questions?
So you said 2 years for a warranty. Is there another tier up for 5-year?
The only thing that they do is they do like service contracts.
Yeah.
It gets real expensive real fast. It's something that I've never looked into. I know, when I was talking to the technician, when he came down to the golf course, he was saying a golf course, wanted to sign on to it, but it did not fit their budget. And they're a much bigger golf course than what we are. So during service contracts is not, I don't feel is worth it since they are right here in Wichita. When mainly what it does is you pay X amount for them to come out and look at the piece of equipment, or we could just take it there. So it makes more sense to save that money, put it somewhere else. And if we have any problems with equipment, we just take it to him.
Does it come with a trailer?
No, it will fit on the trailers we currently have.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not, it looks like a big unit. It is a big unit, but it's not it's a lot smaller than our fairway mower, so. And it can fit on that trailer.
So the old piece of equipment, what are you gonna do with that? That's replaced?
We're gonna purple wave it. So I have like 4 or 5 pieces of equipment that need to go into purple wave this year.
yeah.
And like I said, like this piece of equipment, it also, like I could get a reel mower, sod cutter, Versa bucket, which is a big bucket, tiller, broom, stump grinder, landscape rake, blower, you name it, it has it. It's just a piece of equipment that will take place of numerous pieces of equipment down the road. So in the end, it will save the golf course money going with this, other than buying like an actual, like 104-inch zero-turn rough mower.
Right.
Or going with that $104,000 John Deere mower that will probably last 10, 15 years. But this is definitely the better, for everything that I've looked at and demoed, this is definitely the best choice for the golf course.
Ethan, where would the funds come from? Is it in the golf course budget or out of the general equipment fund?
The equipment fund, the golf course would have sufficient funds.
Is this covering for planned replacement on existing equipment?
Yeah, especially if you factor in, if this goes from him planning to replace a skid steer to just buying a bucket at a fraction of the cost, the golf course equipment should come out ahead.
Sounds like a very versatile piece of equipment. I think Sam practiced his presentation in front of a mirror for a couple hours before he got down here tonight.
Just mirrored myself.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve the purchase of the Ventrac 4520Z, the Ventrac 84-inch contour deck, and the Ventrac aerator in a price not to exceed $55,000.
Second.
Have the motion and the second to approve this golf course equipment. All in favor, say aye.
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 Pose same sign. There you go, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is an exciting one. It's the Idea Tech Fiber Optic Partnership Agreement. I know Idea Tech has a representative in the audience, and I'll let Ethan pretense this and introduce him.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is basically the end result following some work and negotiation with Idea Tech following that RFP the city did back, in the fall last year for improved internet connectivity in Halstead. Also looking to establish some dark fiber network connectivity between all city facilities. Then making sure that the entire city was served, including our industrial park, and some areas that didn't currently have high-speed internet from current providers. That was, of course, an action item in the 2019 strategic plan that was requested by the community engagement sessions, were increased broadband connectivity and options. So what we have is basically an agreement with Idea Tech. City would basically partner with them. $227,500 would be what we're committing financially to that. And you have the scope of services there, but basically covers everything that was in that RFP response. As far as running, which everyone I think is well aware that they've been running fiber throughout the city for the last couple of months. I believe they're pretty soon to go live. Thomas Garrett is here with Idea Tech, and I will gladly turn it over to him. But one of the most exciting things is we do have some guaranteed pricing for residents for 2 years, including waiving those installation fees, that is a benefit to all residents, which is, to me, a good return on the investment of these public funds that we're going to that. So it's not just the city as an entity receiving a benefit in terms of that dark fiber network, but there is return if residents or businesses would choose to take advantage of that pricing, so.
Come on up, Thomas.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys having me tonight. Thomas Garrett with Idea Tech. I did not practice in front of a mirror for this, so, and I'm nervous speaking in front of people, so I'll try and be brief, but Ethan did a pretty good job of summarizing this. We did an RFP process. We proposed something that we think would be good for all aspects of the community, something that directly benefits folks that live and work and reside in Halstead, both folks that choose to adopt our service and folks that do not choose to adopt our service. There'll be public Wi-Fi hotspots that are available for anybody to use in town also. And then the dark fiber network that produces a scalable infrastructure for you guys to have connectivity to all your city buildings long into the future. So it's a really forward-thinking plan. It has a whole bunch of good things in it, but I'll give you a quick update on the project. Called the project manager today to try and get a really good update, and also to make sure I wasn't going to have anybody mad here ready to scream at me. So I don't think that's the case. He sent the report was generally pretty good. We had a couple sewer line hits, which is pretty normal, but usually very good at getting those things addressed. He didn't mention any gas line hits, so I don't know if we've had a gas line hit, but one. Okay, that's not too bad. I mean, we try and do everything as safely as possible, but underground construction has its hazards. So, but we are about 98% complete on all the construction work, physical construction, any, boring and attaching to utility poles. So most of that work's behind us. And what's left to do is the splicing and the network connections. And so we should see the first customers getting lit up before the end of the month, and we anticipate everything being done by the end of April. So that's pretty excited about that. It's a pretty decent turnaround. It's been a great project, fantastic city to work in. Everything's moved along, really well. And the agreement, we're really happy with it. I think from my perspective, you guys are doing something really good in being able to cascade some of those ARPA dollars to, improve the ability for folks to adopt service and benefit from high-speed internet in the city. So, yeah. Take any questions that you guys have.
Just on the public Wi-Fi points, is there any cost to the city for that in the future, or is that something that Idea Tech's providing?
So they're 5-year managed, so we'll install them, and then for 5 years, we'll maintain the systems, and then typically at the end of that 5-year period, they're just yours. And, we can include longer management of those systems if you guys choose to do it, but they're pretty low maintenance, so yeah, they're a 5-year managed. There's no cost to the city for those 5 years, and then after the fact, you guys can choose to maintain them or just let them run. So, but they'll be connected, so you guys can just manage them.
Okay.
Yeah. So only continued cost if you guys choose to do it. That's basically it. Yep.
Any other questions, council? Well, I don't have any. You answered mine. I've seen the fiber in the alley. I was just wondering when you were gonna run the drop to my house.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'll tell you one thing we're super excited about is there's about 20% of the town that have showed interest in pre-signups. And so what I'm really excited to do, if we can get the agreement signed, is to call some of those folks and tell them they're gonna get a better deal than they're getting today. That's always a fun phone call. So, but we've had a really good response. Like I said, 20% on pre-signups is a great number. That's a good deal, so.
Good. All right, there's no further discussion. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the fiber optic partnership agreement with Idea Tech for an amount not to exceed $227,500 and authorize the city manager to execute required documentation.
Second.
We have the motion and the second to enter into this agreement with Idea Tech. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Congratulations, Thomas.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. I'm gonna go and get marketing and everybody to start putting the pieces into place and let everybody know. We're super excited. So thank you guys very much for being
Too.
a great partner. So,
I think we're excited.
Well, I hope this partnership has just started.
yeah, absolutely.
And maybe, you know, we'll get you guys involved in some other community activities and
Yes.
stuff like that too.
We intend to do that, and James, I wanted to have James here. He's our community relations manager. He had to go to Heston today, but Ethan knows him. He's all about getting involved in the community and being a partner in the things that you guys do. So, yeah.
I understand you had a pretty strong number of subscribers over there as well.
Yeah, it's going pretty good there too. Yeah, it's, man, everywhere, you know, and that's one thing I'll say is, you know, we advocate a lot for our product, obviously, but the adoption of it shows the need. And that's the thing I kind of say to everybody is, you know, if you're thinking about where to place anything or try and make investment in your community, and it's kind of wild, you know, but the folks that we talk to, they would rather have internet than decent roads. You know, it's weird, but that's the thing that folks really want right now, and so the adoption speaks for itself.
Well, and for me, it's nice to be able to partner with a company that's literally our neighbor. You
Yeah.
guys are based out of Buehler, Kansas, so,
Yeah.
you know, I think that's a good part of it too. So appreciate you coming in here tonight.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Next item on the agenda, we're having all kinds of fun stuff tonight. This is Dragon Grant application reviews. This is a program that I believe Ethan, when he was a clerk, came to us with this program, and it's been very successful for the community, and looks like we have this year's rounds, so.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yep, we started these in 2018. Since that time, we've basically invested $213,705.88 to 22 unique businesses or organizations, all of them located pretty much in downtown Halstead. We did update those guidelines in 2020. We originally did the grants kind of as a first come, first serve. Now we basically allow anyone to apply at any time throughout the year, but any new applications we get after January 1st or any applications that weren't funded in a previous year for whatever reason, unless they were just not qualified or had not met the terms of a previous award, we consider at this March 1st meeting. So we had one pending application, which was the application from Halstead Floral at the Plaza. And then we had two new applications, one from the Halstead Historical Society and one from Troy's True Value. Preliminary review of all that. Troy's has been a successful Dragon Grant recipient. This would be their second one. Same with Halstead Floral. This would be their second one. Historical Society would be their first Dragon Grant if you all choose to award that. All three did ask for the max amount, which is $10,000. That would leave us another $10,000 available of what we budget to do Dragon Grant awards. And so hopefully this gets the word out and some more people apply for those remaining funds for 2023. But staff recommendation upon review of all that would be to approve all three Dragon Grant requests. They do require separate motions though, since they're going to separate businesses. And then we can work with them as far as the personal guarantee and some of the other information that's needed. So other than that, I can answer any questions if you all have any, or, yeah, and we don't ask the business owners, or we don't require them to be present at the meetings, if you're wondering why. There's not representation from any applicants,
Except one.
well, yeah. So.
I guess I'll make a motion to approve a $10,000 Dragon Grant to Troy's True Value.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve a $10,000 Dragon Grant to Troy's True Value Hardware. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That one passes.
Move to approve a $10,000 Dragon Grant to the Halstead Historical Society.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve a $10,000 dragon grant to the Halstead Historical Society. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. That one passes.
Then I'll move to approve a $10,000 dragon grant to the Halstead Floral at the Plaza.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve a $10,000 dragon grant to Halstead Floral at the Plaza. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. And you'll note that Councilman Lanahan abstained from that, as that is his business. So those dragon grants stand approved. Thank you, council. We have no executive session this evening, which surprises me because it seems like we always have one. So we'll move on to the support or the report section. And Julie has been gracious enough to fill this up with 3 proclamations tonight. So I'll start with my first one. It is a Severe Weather Awareness Week proclamation. Whereas Severe Weather Awareness Week is an annual opportunity to raise awareness about the importance of preparing for and understanding severe weather and flooding in Kansas, and to encourage all citizens to prepare their homes, businesses, and communities better for the upcoming storm and flood season. And whereas the Kansas Hazard Mitigation Plan identifies severe weather and flooding as some of the costliest types of natural disasters in Kansas in terms of lives lost, injuries, and property damage. And whereas severe thunderstorms, tornadoes, and floods annually threaten people, pets, livestock, homes, and other property in every county in Kansas. And whereas severe thunderstorms, tornadoes, and floods can happen anytime, anywhere, and without warning prior. And whereas flood damage is not normally covered under a standard homeowner's insurance policy. And whereas the state of Kansas, in conjunction with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's National Weather Service, will observe Severe Weather Awareness Week on March 6th through the 10th. Now therefore I, the mayor of the city of Halstead, Kansas, does hereby proclaim and recognize March 6th through the 10th, 2023 as Severe Weather Awareness Week in the city of Halstead, Kansas, and urge all citizens to recognize this observance with appropriate readiness and preparedness actions. That will be signed by Dennis Travis later this evening. And it is important, and we have invested in our early warning systems. We just added a new tornado siren, 2 years ago? And I did notice this morning they were just a little off. They weren't quite at 10 o'clock. I think it was like 4 minutes past 10, so. Yeah, are they, is that who triggers those, is 911? Okay.
Sometimes they get busy, they have to delay it a little bit, so.
It's usually weird, because when it goes off, I look at my phone and it's dead on, and it was off this morning. Found it weird.
Daylight savings time.
My next proclamation definitely used to affect the city of Halstead, but thanks to the Corps and our floodgates, we're not in as bad a shape as we once were. This is a Flood Safety Awareness Week proclamation. Whereas Flood Safety Awareness Week is an opportunity to raise awareness about the importance of preparing for and understanding flooding in Kansas, and to encourage all citizens to better prepare their homes, businesses, and communities for the upcoming flood season. And whereas the Kansas Hazard Mitigation Plan identifies flooding as one of the costliest types of natural disaster in Kansas in terms of lives lost, injuries, property damage, and whereas floods threaten people, homes, and other property in every county in Kansas, and whereas floods happen anytime, anywhere, and without warning. And whereas the damage from a flood is not normally covered under standard homeowner's insurance policy, and whereas there was widespread flooding in 2019 across the state, and there were many localized flash flooding that happened in 2020, 2021, and 22, and whereas the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's National Weather Service will initiate Severe Weather Awareness Week on March 6th, and whereas the Secretary of the Kansas Department of Agriculture, the Kansas Insurance Commissioner, and the Kansas Adjutant General, all believe awareness of the dangers and costs of flooding is important to all citizens of Kansas. Now therefore, I, the mayor of the city of Halstead, do hereby proclaim March 2nd through the 10th, 2023 as Flood Safety Awareness Week in the city of Halstead, and urge all citizens to join in this observation, to be signed later by me. My last proclamation for the evening, it really has a lot to do with Halstead too. It's a natural gas proclamation. Since we do own that utility in town, we do tend to get more involved with our natural gas system and things associated with it. So, National Natural Gas Utility Workers Day. Whereas a way to recognize natural gas utility workers for their hard work and accomplishments, the American Public Gas Association began recognizing March 18th as Natural Gas Utility Workers Day. And whereas natural gas utility workers demonstrate exemplary, that's a tough word to
Exemplary.
commitment to safety and ensuring natural gas is highly reliable to all of its residential and commercial and industrial consumers. And whereas natural gas utility workers are essential responders during storms like the recent Arctic weather event, where they work through brutal conditions to prevent even a single Kansas outage. Now therefore, I, Dennis Travis, Mayor of the City of Halstead, do hereby proclaim March 18th, 2023 as National Natural Gas Utility Workers Day in recognition of the dedication of those workers to our community. I'll sign that one later this evening too. So that finishes my section of the reports tonight. Now I'll go to the council. Start with you, Brody.
Just want to mention that the new sign out front is very impressive, and they did a fantastic job with that, so very glad we have it.
Denise?
Well, same thing, and if you've not been downtown or driven down Main Street at night, I would highly encourage you to do so, because the graphics on that thing is they're awesome, and it just, yeah, they outdid themselves with the 1887 and the bridge all lit up at night. It's very impressive. If you've not come down at night, please take some time to do so.
Derek?
St. Patty's Day is Friday. Just want to encourage everyone to be safe and enjoy the holiday.
Everybody's Irish then.
Thank you, council. I did receive several compliments on the new sign over the weekend. It's always nice to get that feedback from residents when you're spending their money, so. With that, we'll move into the city manager reports, and when you get done with your manager report, you can move into your financial, Ethan.
You guys already took the thunder of the major development, which was the sign getting put in, and yeah, I mean, it was, I don't even think the crew had been gone for 10 minutes, and we started getting phone calls and people stopping in, just saying how great they think the sign is and the redesign, so I'll make sure to update our little Zoom photo there that's the old sign, but it was a good project. We had to wait slightly longer than we anticipated, but very happy with the end result. We do still have some training, I mean, just the install, so just bear with us. The message, the pre-recording, we will work on starting to get that changed in the coming weeks as we're finish up the backside as far as getting the IT side of things, so we can talk to the machine consistently through the firewall, and then Julie and her staff get trained up on how to put messaging and things on there. So look forward to utilizing that and having the community be able to utilize it to help get their messages out as well. Just noting, I sent you all the formal managers report, kind of with the statistics for the previous month. We are gearing up as it's a new year, so just a reminder to residents, as the weather's starting to get nicer, people are taking their pets or their golf carts out. Just if you haven't renewed registration on your golf carts, please do so. And also pet registration will start to go towards the newer year instead of the old year. So that formally you need to have that done by May 31st to avoid the late fee. Other than that, we've basically just been upgrading and working on several city projects, finalizing some of those terms with Idea Tech that were presented. I just want to point out that Parks and Recreation are offering a new youth track program this year as a spring sport. They held their informational meeting, I believe, last Thursday night. So I haven't had a chance yet to talk to Director Williams, but they were pretty excited to just have a new opportunity for grades 1 through 6 to have another spring sport to participate in if they choose. Other than that, Public Works has been busy trying to clear clear trees from the Main Street Extension project, so that pile is getting smaller every day. Just appreciate their dedication to getting that done on top of everything else they're doing in the city. They also were very responsive as far as making sure that the vandalism at the PD got cleaned up in a timely manner the night that happened. So just want to thank Pat and his guys for that as well. We have sent the first half of seed project funds out to those sub-grant recipients. So look forward to hopefully seeing some projects start to go forward. I did talk to Kerry at the Learning Center. I believe they were able to secure all the matching funding they needed to do all 5 pieces of equipment there at the Learning Center. So that's some great news for that specific project. Still waiting, haven't heard anything from the hazard mitigation grants we applied for. The base 2.0 grants still have not yet been announced as well. Each of those grant programs we have 2 applications out for. Did just get contact back from Harlan on the quotes for coring work on 10th Street, so we will pick a contractor and move forward with that. Hopefully that sounds like we won't have results until about 5 or 6 weeks. It takes them about 2 weeks to come out and do the coring.
Hey, Ethan, is your microphone?
It sure isn't, thank you. So anyway, the two weeks for them to come out and core, and then another 3 weeks to do all the testing they need to do on those cores. So hopefully we sometime late April, early May can present to you kind of what that information is as far as that proposed work on 10th Street. Also spoke to Harlan. He believes they should be done finalizing the Main Street extension and the 9th and Walnut plans. So hopefully we will be able to have finalized plans for both of those projects for you guys to approve and go out to bid next meeting. So very exciting to move forward on those projects after this time. We're still meeting with concrete contractors to discuss installation of the pad that we'll need for the new bleachers there at the softball diamond. And other than that, it's a very busy time in the legislature now that turnaround's passed. So we're really monitoring, speaking with our representatives on some bills. Particularly one that we're really watching is a sales tax bill where they would also exempt food from local sales taxes, which would, be a financial hit to us. And one of the reasons it concerns us in Halstead is back when that second sales tax was approved countywide, the governing body obligated those funds to pay for the swimming pool bond payment. So while I commend the state legislature on reducing food sales tax, us keeping that local sales tax and those funds we've come to rely on, especially for a bond payment's pretty important. So I hope they make changes, and when we've talked to our representatives to basically leave state law as it is now, which is the state sales tax is free to go away, but it should be up to the local units that exercise those tax and the voters who put them into place, whether that stays. Other than that, been very busy with meetings. The last thing I just want to point out is April 14th through the 15th is that League of Kansas Municipalities Leadership Summit and the Kansas Mayor's Conference, which is in Hays, Kansas this year. Please get with myself or Julie by the end of this week if you want to go to that, so we can get your hotel booked before that pricing and block of rooms is gone. So that's all I have for my manager's report, unless there's any questions there. And financial report, it's pretty early in the year, so it'll be pretty short. We did reconcile with the city treasurer. Books are officially closed. Total cash across all funds and investments was $6,821,883.11. I did want to note two things that staff, we did not choose to renew our idle funds certificate of deposit for our general fund reserve money. We're basically opting to place that with other city funds due to the better interest rate returns that we'll see now. We will continue to monitor those yields and return that money to a timed deposit and reinvest those when it becomes obvious that that's going to be a greater value than currently the interest that we're accruing on those funds. We did also move our cemetery perpetual funds into a 10-month CD, and again, that was in order to secure a better return on investment. So it's kind of nice. Larger economic issues notwithstanding, it is kind of nice to actually be able to shop around and you actually look for good returns on our investments for her change. Cash position of the city remains favorable compared to last year by around 500,000. Expenses across all budgeted funds are slightly below the expectations for this time of year, and revenues are in line with our expectations thus far. We did begin budgeted transfers in February. We start those early in the year just to try and keep our cash levels steady across all of our funds. And our capital fund balances are slightly elevated due to the delay in certain capital projects. So I think we're between the equipment fund and the capital improvement fund, holding just shy of $2 million in there, which is higher than we'd normally see. But again, we've had those delayed road projects, which are really big ticket items. So it's still very early in our financial year, but no real alarming trends or major issues are being observed. You'll probably note that the gas fund does look like it's taken a dip, and I will say that is just basically in lieu of the fact that we're making those doubled up gas installment loan payments to the state. So we weren't doing that last year, so that will cause that cash balance to come down. Completely expected, and obviously will save us money in the long run by lessening the amount of interest we pay on that loan. So that is all I have this evening. We're still on very solid financial footing as we're approaching the end of our first quarter, so.
Council, anybody have any questions of Ethan's financial report?
I don't.
If not, that concludes our agenda, and I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for adjournment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you, council.